What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique of the Fight Guys. I'm a Forbes contributor and also writer for Heavy.com, and I'm here with my fellow Fight Guy and fellow Forbes contributor and also Boxing Manager of the Year candidate for 2019, Peter Kahn. What's going on today, Pete?
All's good, Brian. Another Monday, another week. Things sort of starting to possibly get back to normal a little bit.
A little bit. A couple stay-at-home orders being lifted across a few different states. Indiana is one of them. It's coming off a huge UFC week with 3 events in 8 days. So we'll get into that in a little bit more. We are powered by Fight TV and presented by Bet Online. Watching us on Fight TV, make sure you go over to YouTube right now and search the Fight Guys and subscribe to the channel. Like the videos, share it. We need that love. We appreciate that love. It is fantastic. Let's jump right into round one so we can talk a little bit about the week that was with UFC. All right. So, Peter, looking back at UFC Fight Night 172, I'm not going to go all the way back to UFC 249. We already talked about that.
Listen, I'm going to say something.
You do it. You say it.
You're not going to say it.
You say it. I'm going to say it.
People were very happy with your picks.
Were they?
Listen, people love when you hit underdog picks. And here's the other thing. Even when, with the amount of visceral responses that were received to what people felt were robberies, even though you were wrong, they felt you were right. So even on the official record, it's an L, but the people
felt what about the people?
They felt you won those fights too. So you did pretty darn good. I mean, on paper 7-4, but in reality, probably more like 9-2, right?
Yeah, I would. To be fair, I might have got the benefit of the doubt on one of them. One of the fights that I was going to talk about, they could have gone another way. That some people thought, that fighter was robbed. So it was what it was. Overall, for the week, it was pretty decent. I think it was 14 plus 5 is 9, 8. I think it was 19 and 13 for the week overall.
When you pick dogs, because of the nature of a plus 250, a plus 300, we're making the record doesn't really tell the picture.
Right.
Because if you're ahead of the game 6 fights with plus, 250 on each of those, guys were making it outweighs the overall. They ended up plus 6 credits, if you want to say, but they were underdogs
for sure. For sure, one of the biggest. Thank you. I appreciate it. And congratulations to anybody
who reading the comments. I was like,
congratulations to anybody who benefited. One of my biggest ones this week, the biggest underdog for UFC Fight Night 172 was Tab and Dan Ige to beat Edson Barboza. And this is the one that could have gone either way. As a matter of fact, Edson Barboza had a formal protest to the decision that got quickly thrown out this morning. He thought that he did enough to win 2 of the 3 rounds. It could have gone either way. Ige, I didn't think fought a smart. I don't think he fought a smart fight. In my prediction, I said what I felt he needed to do was to pressure Barboza to work to get the takedown, to tire him out, and get it to the ground. He did that in the 3rd round. And I thought he dominated the 3rd round. The rounds prior to that, I felt like he wanted to prove that he could stand and strike with Barboza. Got hurt in the 1st round, got knocked down, was able to get back up and not get finished. In the 2nd round, he actually did pretty well standing, but then again, at the end of the round, he got hurt with a kick to the body. And I felt if he had just pressured and tried to put Barboza down earlier in terms of the takedown, I thought he would have had an easier fight. But as it turned out, he ended up still getting the decision victory, and I won that one.
Now, you mentioned a protest being thrown out. Now, if there was any protest I felt could possibly be, something that would gain some traction just based on the social media reaction, would have been Marlon Vera's fight. What do you have to say about that?
I think he definitely had a case, but The situation was that I don't think he was busy enough, right? So the fight looked exactly the way I thought. And I had picked Vera to win this fight. He was the underdog. This would have really given me a fantastic week of picks if this one had gone my way.
That social media felt he won this fight.
Yeah, a lot of people felt that he got robbed. The problem was for me with him, the way he approached this fight was, like I said, it looked the way I thought it would look. I knew he was longer. I knew how tough he was. I knew how good he was in terms of boxing and judging distance. I knew that Song Yadong was faster, but I felt that he would be able to kind of get inside of that, use his reach, and he was able to do that. But one thing was weird that he kept doing was he had the reach advantage both in arm length and in leg length. So he would get right to a space where he could touch Song and Song couldn't touch him, but yet he wouldn't throw anything.
Okay.
So it was just like he was content with getting into a striking distance. And then he got to a point where he was closing the distance and waiting for Song to fire.
Right.
And because Song is so fast, I felt like, he missed some opportunities to win some exchanges and to initiate some exchanges. A lot of times you'll hear trainers, especially in boxing, they'll yell, "You first, you first, you first." And I wanted to yell that to Vera, especially since he had the reach advantage. But so I thought in doing that, he left it open for him to lose that second round, which I thought was ultimately the pivotal round.
But despite all that, there was just an overwhelming sentiment that he won.
Yeah, I think a lot of times what happens is, though, people get caught up in the last thing that they saw. Right. And the last thing that they saw was in the third round was Vera on top of Song dominating. So, yes, he won that round definitively. But you know this from listening to people who judge combat sports. They judge a fight the way they judge it in the street. And the last thing that they saw was this guy getting the best shots. But you made a reference before. You were like a fight in boxing is 12 3-minute fights. Correct. And you have to judge each one of those. That's how they're supposed to be judged.
They're just individually scored. So it's the sum of all of that together.
Exactly.
It's so all right. Well,
and I think that's what
did he protest?
Right. I mean, I think that's what a lot of people didn't do. For me, I felt that it definitely could have gone Vera's way, and I wouldn't have said, "Oh, this is a robbery." Right. But I also see how he could have lost that second round because I don't think he was quite busy enough. The other thing about that fight was I felt the sportsmanship or the lack thereof that he showed at the end of the fight was kind of just, like he didn't get the decision. Song Yadong goes over to him to give him a handshake, and he blows him off like that. I'm like, bro, Song didn't judge the fight. You know what I mean? Why you mad at him?
I mean, usually guys after that will, there's, I'll tell you something, just because you said that. I speak to some of the folks at USA Boxing.
Right.
Officials, right? And there's one person in particular who is in charge of all the events. And he told me, he's like, I give everybody a free pass who are mostly fine that come by my table immediately after their fight and their son loses a decision. Whatever they say to me, I don't even pay attention. I give them a free pass for a few minutes till they calm down. And then most of them come back and, change their tune. Sometimes these guys still have that adrenaline pumping. I understand that there's a need for good sportsmanship, but there's just a feeling when you really feel you won and you got robbed. It's not that you feel that the other guy had something to do with it. It's the overall disgust.
I get it. I
understand what you're saying. I mean, I would say most part, it's a tough situation to be in because you leave it in the judge's hands and you leave room for disappointment. But like I keep going back to, it wasn't just his own idea that he won.
Yeah, for sure.
I heard from people in the UFC thought he won.
Yeah, absolutely.
Social media thought he won, regardless of the fact that maybe you're saying that he left it open to interpretation in the second round. Looking back in hindsight, we can say that.
Yeah.
But in the moment, everybody thought he won.
Yeah, I likened it to De La Hoya Trinidad. I felt Trinidad won that fight. I mean, I felt De La Hoya won that fight.
Right.
But I felt that De La Hoya left it open because he chose
by running
in the last couple
when
rounds.
He thought he was protecting a lead.
Yeah, exactly. And I felt like sometimes you make a tactical decision that leaves it open. And then when the decision doesn't go your way, you're the one that goes home with the regrets. Like, man, if I'd have just been a little bit more, then this wouldn't have happened. So I kind of likened it to that situation. And I get it. Like you said, Herb Dean said the same thing. He said, within the moment, right after I stop a guy, I give a free pass to just about anything they say or do. Yeah. But it is what it is. The one thing is, though, I watch people lose in tougher situations, and they handle it better than that. So I'm not throwing him, damning him to hell or nothing. It just wasn't cool. Just all.
What are your thoughts on Walt Harris?
Well, before we get to Walt Harris, there was another fight on the card that we wanted to talk about, the co-main event, Claudia Gadelha against Angela Hill. This was another disputed decision. Gadelha got the decision, and Angela Hill desperately thought she won, swore at the screen, which was pretty hilarious, right when the decision was read. I did judge the fight for Gadelha. She's another one who I don't think fought the right fight. I thought she she stood for too long. I knew that Angela Hill would be a better striker than her. She got dropped in the second round pretty nasty after she had dominated the first round going for the takedown. Angela Hill did a good job fighting takedowns off, but I felt that Gadelha should have been more aggressive going for takedowns. She should have simply been jabbing straight right hand just to cause the defense to be up top so she could change levels to go for the takedown. But she was too content to box. And from a speed standpoint and from a stamina standpoint, she just couldn't keep the pace. So I felt that, while she did do enough, I felt in the third round to win, I thought she gave herself a chance to get the same type of treatment that Marlon Vera got, because I thought she chose and that Dan Ige could have gotten, because she chose a wrong route. So, but that was the co-main event. In the main event, the Walt Harris thing was, I'm going to tell you something. This is probably an unpopular type of a take. Okay. But the world was behind Walt Harris, obviously, because of the horrible thing that happened. But I'm going to use a Dennis Green, kind of a take. Walt Harris is who I thought he was. Walt Harris has a hole in his game, and it is anytime the fight goes to the ground. Okay. It's been this way before. I'm not saying that he didn't deserve the shot. He absolutely did. He's been knocking guys out, and he's a fantastic striker. He's a big, super athletic heavyweight. But when that fight goes to the ground, he looks absolutely lost. And the extra weight that he had did not help, because once he went down to the mat and Overeem got on his back, he got gassed so quickly. I mean, you hardly ever see a guy taking that heavy of deep breaths, especially this was still the first round. And he was at that point, it was a wrap. And
I'm sorry, but like we said, maybe that weight was to try to prevent those takedowns. Maybe there wasn't a full proper training camp, but what I'm saying is maybe it backfired.
Well, the funny thing is that he slipped. He didn't even get taken down. Right. He slipped. And when he slipped, Overeem's very smart. As soon as because Overeem was literally maybe 20 seconds from being this close to being stopped, because Walt had hurt him with a 2-3 combination. And he went down, and Overeem was doing just enough to keep the fight from being stopped, because Dan Miragliotta was moving in, looking to see if he was going to stop. And Overeem did enough just to block it through some up kicks to keep him off. And then in the process, right after the up kick came and it caught Walt in the chest a little bit, Walt moved to his left a little bit, but in that process, he lost his footing. And when he lost his footing, Overeem went right on top of him and started landing shots. And because Walt is so totally inequipped to build a base to stand up, it's over. It's over. It was just that simple. And he also looked to panic a bit when he was down there. But that's what guys do when they're not equipped on the ground. They go to the ground and they panic. Right. So, that's what it was. So I think Walt can still beat a lot of heavyweights. But if he fights any heavyweight who has the ability to take him down, this is what's going to happen. So he's got about a 90-second window in which he has to stop a guy early. If he's not able to do that and they're able to get a single or double that's tight in on him and push him against that cage, he's a big, strong guy, but everybody's fighting is big, strong guys too. So, that's what it was. But it was an entertaining card altogether, and basically has us looking forward to the next one. So let's jump into our first between the rounds. All right, so we are. You got UFC 250.
UFC 250. Set for June 6th. And I'm hearing all sorts of things about where the UFC is going to land at the end of May. So, look, here are a few things I'll share. The Nevada Commission's not even going back to work until June 1. It's an awfully tight window to have things in order for a June 6th event in Nevada. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe everything's in order and it's going to go off well, but I'm hearing that they wanted May 23rd to be in Nevada already. I'm hearing that now could potentially be in Arizona. Now, that has nothing to do with UFC 250, but I'm just sort of giving you, what I'm hearing, the rumors that I'm hearing regarding, what's up next for the UFC. So the other thing I will say, just it's kind of a little off topic, but with a lot of this downtime, I finally watched the Notorious documentary on Netflix from 2017. I'm a little late on it. I enjoyed it. I'm just letting you know. I thought it was good, and it kind of made me want to see Conor McGregor again. Just throwing that out there. So here's what I wanted to ask you. UFC 250, June 6th, doesn't really matter where it is. It could be in the Apex in Nevada, in Las Vegas. It could be on the moon. It could be, Arizona. It doesn't really matter. But what I want to know is the matchups, who you want to see, what you want to see. And I want to get your thoughts on that. And overall, I would say kudos to Dana White and the UFC for pulling off 3 really good shows with all things considered, very small issues. I think it would have been unheard of to think with those many moving parts that we weren't going to get, little snafu here and there, a positive test. It's just indicative of what's going on in the world right now. But I think we did a great job to bring the UFC back, get it moving, and, really in the championship rounds, I want to know what you think about UFC 250.
Absolutely. Have a couple thoughts about that. We'll jump into that during the championship rounds. All right, let's jump into round 2. Okay, so we have to take a step away from the UFC for a second because there is some significant news. And I would say this is pretty significant from a boxing standpoint. According to our friend Mike Coppinger, Errol Spence will be making his return bout. And this is going to be, I believe it's in August, I think is what the date was given. I have to double check and make sure, against Danny Garcia. So if this holds true, Errol's not getting any sort of tune-up fight at all. He's jumping right back into the fray if this is the case. And you would think that if this is in August, there's a decent chance, maybe it won't be in August, they're saying in the fall. So I don't think there's an actual, I'm checking to see if there's a date here that he's saying. It doesn't appear. It says it's a Fox pay-per-view, but doesn't really give anything beyond saying that it's the fall. But yeah, he's not gonna get a tune-up fight. So what are your first thoughts about that?
I mean, my first thoughts are I mean, I have it on pretty good authority regarding that PBC is taking a wait and see approach.
Okay.
With other promoters. So I know that they haven't been in a rush necessarily to be the first back. They do have the benefit of doing shows on the Fox studio lot behind closed doors. You know, they can actually, I mean, where they do Fox on PBC on Fox and, you know, in Los Angeles. So, I mean, they have the ability to convert one of those sound stages, studios into a nice, aesthetically looking venue for no audience fight. A fight like this definitely warrants an audience. But I'll say this. I don't think we're going to see boxing in front of crowds until 2021. Yeah. I really believe that. So I really believe that. But this seems very reasonable. We talked about really what potentially could be next for Errol Spence. We knew it wasn't going to be Manny Pacquiao. He had already fought Mikey Garcia. He already fought Sean Porter. The Terrence Crawford fight would have to be if Danny Garcia needed to be in front of a live crowd, Terrence Crawford needs to be in front of a live crowd. Keith Thurman's coming off the Pacquiao loss, and he hasn't fought. So, I mean, everyone's going to have been facing inactivity. And I know Errol's inactivity is a little bit bigger because of the time off and the accident, and he's been out quite a while. I mean, this doesn't seem like this is something that couldn't have. I mean, eventually he's got to fight, and you know, at this stage, we there's only a certain level of fighter that he could fight, and so I guess if you're looking at the lesser of all evils, you know, maybe Danny Garcia fits into that program as far as. If you're looking at the welterweight division and who PBC has and who Errol Spence could come back and fight having had a lot of inactivity, I think, you know, maybe Danny Garcia's the fight that gives him the most confidence, guy that doesn't have a lot of movement, you know, a technical guy, but I don't see Garcia giving him a lot of trouble. I think also coming up from 40, you know, I just think that Spence being the bigger guy, I mean, it makes sense. And if they're talking about the fall, I mean, who knows? So far away. I mean, it's so far away, things could change. I mean, you know, right now we just hear so much talk. I mean, I've never seen so many guys call guys out before knowing that none of them are fighting anytime soon. So
yeah, I mean, I like the fight. I like the fight. I like the concept of the fight. I like the concept of doing it on a Fox studio lot where, you know, they really can take some liberties with making this thing a spectacle, you know, and understanding that it has to be a virtual spectacle more so than you know, making it a thing, you know. And if you're doing it in the fall, then you have all the time in the world to try to prepare to get that thing together. You have all the time in the world to promote it on social media, do all sorts of things that you have to draw as many people as possible. And like I said, I've been saying this for weeks. I'm really wanting and waiting to see which promoter and which network is going to take a chance on a big fight that is pay-per-view level and trying to do it in front of you know, without an audience, and seeing what that looks like. Somebody take one for the team to see whether or not you can, you know, create a different sort of a vibe, you know, because like you said, if we're going to be looking at this throughout the rest of the year, we still got 6 more months left. So you mean to tell me that boxing is going to hold back every really, truly great and appealing fight to the masses for 6 months because the promoter? Say it again.
Might have to happen.
It doesn't have to happen. That might be what they choose to happen because they don't want to quote unquote sacrifice whatever they think the live gate is going to be, because they don't want to, because it has to happen is meaning there's no feasible way to get it done. There's a way to get it done. It's just a matter of, do you feel like you want to take this chance?
We've talked about this. I mean, you and I have debated this, and it's not just about the promoters. You know, you're now asking fighters to take the same risk for less money.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is
nothing changes for the viewing audience.
Nothing changes for the viewing audience at all. That's what I'm saying. The people involved, they have it, because it all depends on who's going to take the. Who's going to?
Can I give you an example?
Who's going to
give you an example?
Well, hear me out first. Okay. What I say, it all depends on who's going to take the hit. Is the promoter going to take the hit? Are the fighters going to take the hit? Then that comes down to who has the most leverage in the whole situation. So if the fighters don't fight,
that pays has the most leverage.
The person that pays, right?
I mean, it's just, you know, look, I'm going through this right now. And so, you know, the people that are paying are the ones that have leverage, and the fighters that are willing to fight on shorter notice or fight out of their weight class because no one's really making exact weights right now. You know, because everyone's trying to get back and opportunities are presenting themselves. You know, it's going to be that intersection of who can take advantage of opportunity to make the best of it.
So who has the leverage?
Well, I would say the promoters have the leverage right now.
Exactly. Right.
So
promoters have the leverage.
What I'm saying to you is that the world championship fights that we'll see are the ones where the level of fighter and their draw are not even. And I keep going back to Lomachenko. I don't think he sells tickets. You understand what I'm saying? Like his place in the sport as a fighter is much higher than his draw as far as ticket sales.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I think it all still comes down to a very basic decision. I'm paying the money, and I make up my mind how much profit I want to make. So if I want to maintain that profit or get as close to that profit as possible, I have to go to the people that I have to pay to make this work. And I have to figure out where I can pay less. And then it comes down to leverage. So if these are the fighters that I'm talking to in this situation, and I have to come to them and I have to present to them, say, hey man, you know, I want to get this done. And I want to get this done for a certain amount of money. And this is what I'm willing to pay. If the fighter is not willing to fight for that, I understand. That's their decision. They choose not to. So then I'm still, as a promoter, I still want to get it done. I still want to get this thing done. So I'm going to keep going down the line until I can find somebody who is willing to do what I'm trying to do. And then at this point, it keeps going this way until the fighters say, because they're not getting paid if they don't fight, until they say, hey, you know what? I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines. What is that offer again? Somebody's got to break. And like you said, the promoter has the leverage.
But there's also yes and no, right? There's like a fine line. Because let's take Top Rank. Let's take Top Rank and what they're talking about. They're talking about doing 2 shows a week over the course of 15 shows over 2 months. Okay? 75 fights in 8 weeks. Tuesdays and Thursdays on ESPN, right? That's the rumor we hear. So what they're doing is, and they're doing 5 fights per card, apparently, based on what we've heard them say. So in that scenario, that's 75 fights in 2 months. There are going to be world title fights there, but they won't be the world title fights. There's going to be a lot of optional defenses. So what I'm saying is, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Lomachenko fighting an optional defense behind closed doors. Like when you said, like, who do you think's going to, you know, take the chance? I don't think that some guys are actually taking that much of a hit, because I don't think that they bring that their bottom line to the promoter is that much that it makes a difference. Some absolutely do, but I think some don't. So I think like Jamel Herring. I mean, I don't know if, you know, love Jamel, but I don't think he sells more than 2,000 tickets to a show.
No.
So, you know, there's a guy that's already talking about defending July 2nd.
I mean, and this is pretty much my point. You know, you're going to see people fight. And if there's somebody, I think there's like a couple guys who have literally, there's like 2 or 3 guys who have the leverage. And one of those guys is already locked into a deal with DAZN and Golden Boy, where he gets paid a certain amount, period, just flat. Anyway, that's Canelo. Yeah. But there's only like one or two other guys who have enough leverage to be like, no, if you're going to see me fight, you got to pay me this amount. So almost everybody else is in that situation where they, you know, so it will, I mean, we'll see what, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, it's up to them.
Golden Boy is planning on doing a mid-July show with Ryan Garcia. Mm-hmm. Now he does draw. I mean, he does sell tickets.
He does, but this will not like, you know,
be a behind closed door show.
Yeah. Yeah. But so this is what I'm saying is they're going to have to fight. I mean, these guys are going to have to fight. Now, what you're saying is we won't see a huge fight because they're going to want to do that. And if you can get by for 6 months if these guys are fighting. I mean, they'll get by either way. They'll get by. If they want to hold out the biggest fights, I mean, as boxing fans, we've been sitting up here dealing without the best fights for decades, sometimes in certain situations, because I mean, there's fantastic fights that we've never seen. Guys' whole entire careers have come and gone because of this kind of stuff. So I shouldn't say this kind of stuff, but because of the promoter greed and all of this different sort of thing and not being able to work with each other, we've seen plenty of fights not happen. So we'll live with it the same way we've lived with it for decades. All I'm saying is it would be nice to see somebody take a chance and say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to put on this fight that we know very well we could wait 6 to 8 months and be able to do it in front of a huge audience, but we're going to do it like this, like right now. And we're going to get it done. We're going to figure out a way to get it done. Maybe you don't cut the fighter pay. Maybe you still pay them whatever you're going to pay them, and you find out another way as a promoter, as a network, to earn. I just don't think there's a lot of creativity being shown right now. And that doesn't shock me because guys are conducting business and not being creative. So
they're also trying to be responsible. They're trying
responsible for their own pockets, which I don't blame them because they're business guys.
Responsible with the fact that, you know, they can't just get up and make believe that there's not a health risk still taking place.
Well, no, that's the behind the closed doors part. So we already got that established. I'm talking about in terms of making money, you know, in terms of how different ways to explore how to monetize their event. I think we got it pretty much in a you know, pigeonholed into this live gate, you know, do some stuff in the center, in the center of the ring and in the corners, and you know, you monetize the you know, whatever little things they pop up on the screen or whatever. That's it, and it's because that's just all that there's ever been done. But I think this is a different time, a different situation, and it calls for a different school of thought. And it doesn't seem like that's happening. I mean, I don't know. We don't know. We have to see what it looks like in June when it comes back. So we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah, it definitely is. It is. But I think the UFC is proven. And I think this is why the UFC is kind of smacking boxing in the mouth in a lot of ways, because boxing is so rigid and stuck in what it wants to do. And it's a shame because I love boxing more.
Yeah,
than mixed martial arts.
When you pay your fighters 80% less on average, it's easy to do.
Yeah, you pay your fighters.
And that's a fact.
Oh, it's 100% fact. So,
mixed martial artists when you're paying these guys pennies compared to the boxers, it's
mixed martial arts is those guys are drastically underpaid 100%. But I think it's more than that, though. I think there's more than that. I think that the uniformity does not have to be 100% consistent with the underpay. I think there's a way that uniformity, which is what makes the UFC a little bit more attractive to somebody than maybe boxing is. I think the uniformity can exist without drastically underpaying people the way the UFC does. That's their own greed. Everybody's greedy. That's their portion of the greed. But you know, it's just kind of
have the numbers, Brian. I'm going to write a Forbes story this afternoon.
Yeah, about how underpaid they are.
No. That talks about what boxing can expect based on the data that I have from the UFC shows.
Yeah.
UFC shows did great. Like I told you, gave them kudos earlier. You know, I mean, it was fantastic to see live combat sports taking place on television. You know, fighters will adapt to no audience. There were still good fights. It didn't seem like anyone was lost because there wasn't an audience.
Nope.
And you know, it's set things in motion where boxing's looking to come back and promoters are looking to be very aggressive. I mean, I would say that Top Rank doing 75 fights in 60 days is pretty aggressive.
Yeah. That's pretty aggressive. I mean, I don't know how many shows that is.
It's 15 shows.
15 shows. Yeah, that's pretty aggressive.
With world title fights too. So it's you know.
So we'll see.
Not the ones that we want to see, like the mega fights, but we will see fighters we want to see. But it's, you know, it's still, like I said, it's still a fluid situation.
Yeah. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Let's jump into our second of our between the rounds. All right, so we're going to dip back into UFC right now because obviously until next month, that's where pretty much all of the combat sports action is taking place.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about the fights to be made in the UFC. There are, you know, a few things that are potentially on the horizon. I'm going to be able to get into a little bit more of those in the championship rounds, and you know, just going over, you kind of put on your matchmaking hat, and you with the UFC, you can kind of look up and down the rankings, and you can kind of see based off of activity and inactivity, you know, where there's a compelling fight. You know, the good thing is you have a decent chance of seeing the fights happen, unless there's like injuries or something to that effect that pops up. So in the championship rounds, we'll jump in with that. And so
I have some questions for you there. So
absolutely,
a few points there.
Yeah, cool.
Kind of going to go at you a little bit.
Yeah, I would love to see it. All right, so let's look at our round 3. It is time for Ask the Fight Guy.
Dude, I prepared this time. Do it.
Did you? Okay. All right. So we got a question. It came in on Twitter.
What time is it? Game time?
What time is it? It is fight o'clock.
Oh, jeez. We're just.
I figured you were going to mess it up like you did last.
I did mess it up already.
Yes. Jeez. So it's okay.
All right.
But this one came from Man Cave Media on Twitter. And they say, hashtag Ask the Fight Guys. Everybody in the world just watched Last Dance with Michael Jordan. Oh my God, it was so good. It was, I mean, I can't even put into words how good it was. It was, and I literally lived through and experienced all of that stuff, like as a fan, totally plugged into the Bulls during all that time. I mean, I grew up on Mike, and it was just great. Even still, it was just great. I felt like I got a chance to know Mike a little bit more than I did before, and you know, it's crazy. But it says, what fighter in boxing or MMA would you like to see a documentary focus on? So it said both of us. So, you know, you can tell me who you would say. I already kind of know mine.
So it's kind of funny that they asked that because I literally just watched that. Like I didn't, obviously you can tell them, I don't know what questions you're picking for Ask the Fight Guys. So the fact that I just watched that Notorious, I'm a little, like I said, a little late to the party here. It was definitely intriguing.
Right.
I'll let you go first with MMA and then I'll answer for boxing.
Oh, mine is not MMA.
Oh, okay. So go for it.
Okay. I've mentioned this before, but I would 100% be locked in for a Floyd Mayweather Jr. like life/career documentary. I would want him to be interviewed, but I don't feel like he would be like 100%, you know, honest and upfront and, you know, with everything, because I know Floyd's great. I know how fantastic of a fighter he is. I know how fantastic of a businessman he's been. But I know there's some pain in there too. And I know there's some stuff that might be tough to talk about. And I know there's obviously some faults, because we've seen this faults put on front stage, plenty of times. And the thing that I liked about Last Dance, even though, don't get me wrong, I know that Michael Jordan did not let every single last cat out of the bag in terms of what might be perceived as a shortcoming. It was, even though some of the stuff was quote unquote, perhaps maybe a little bit tough to see Mike being this raw, it still overall was packaged in a way that made you admire him. So don't get me wrong. But what I did like is that we got a chance to see the non-PC version of Mike. And I thought that that's part of what made Last Dance so awesome. We already see a non-PC version of Floyd all the time. That's part of his appeal. But there's another layer that I want to see, the human being. And that's what I would want to see from a Floyd Mayweather documentary. I want to see the human being, not the villain. Not, that I want to see, because he's not all villain. He's not all villain. He's not all hero. He's, in some instances, I'm quite sure he's hurt human being or hurt young man or hurt young boy that has become a man who still carries these scars. I want to see that guy, and I understand it takes a lot to let all that out. But that's the documentary I would like to see.
So, keeping in line with that, I think that in order to kind of get that feeling that people are getting from The Last Dance, I think that, first of all, that would have to happen like 30 years from now, like probably 20, maybe 20 something years from now, where he's more reflective.
Yes.
Instead of still trying to sell the Money Mayweather lifestyle. So then he can look back. And that's the whole idea, is being able to look back. And from that perspective, I think one of the things that boxing fans have both been privileged to, that a lot of other sports haven't, and the UFC, have been The Ultimate Fighter, 24/7, all access, and now with the zone 40 days. And I think what's happened is we've had so much of a look behind some of the biggest stars behind the scenes leading up to fights, that we've gotten so much of them. We've gotten so much of Floyd and Manny in those lead ups. But, as far as to answer the question on a documentary, I'd like to see something that is consistent with how The Last Dance is more of like a historical look with modern commentary, taking the look back and then sort of answering questions or giving insight to that time. So I think what would be more interesting to me is, like I said, maybe 20 years from now, having somebody, like Floyd, or who, maybe, I don't know. I mean, let's look at our superstars, right? Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather. Who else would you want to see in boxing? Because when we've seen so much of them, especially in the day and age of social media. I mean, what if social media existed during the Bulls' runs?
Oh, yeah. We talked about that. And Andrea Kramer made that comment at the end of The Last Dance.
It wouldn't have been that exciting.
Yeah, she was saying that Mike built this brand that he built for himself without the benefit of social media. She was like, can you imagine what it would have been had he had access to this? I mean, he did this in the 90s when, that wasn't a thing, but for Floyd, I definitely do want to see the historical things. Like I want to see him sitting there talking about Jose Luis Castillo, the first and second fight. I want to see somebody hand him a tablet watching this fight. And I want to hear him literally give the opinion. Do you think you lost this fight? Was there a fight that you thought you lost? Did you think that you lost the De La Hoya fight? Because some people felt like that you lost that fight. Yeah. How hurt were you?
Yeah. When that won't come now.
Well, see, you know what? I think you're probably right. But there is one thing that makes me wonder if the right person came to him, if he'd be willing to do it, is because of the hardships that's going on in his personal life right now. Nothing like that. The things like that sometimes will push you into a place where if somebody catches you on the right day and in the right situation, you will be open to give some information. But for Floyd, he has to believe that he has nothing else to lose by doing it. And for right now, he still probably feels like there's a persona that he has to protect. When in actuality, he doesn't. He really doesn't. He really would do himself such a huge favor from a brand standpoint if he were to do something like that. He would get a few people off his back, and it would open up more opportunities for him. Yeah. Because you can only be a villain when you're relevant. And the older he gets, the less relevant he becomes.
But it's more about reflection and honesty and reflection. I mean, and sometimes the distance between that can help you have different perspective or be more honest.
Yes.
Age will do that for you.
Age will do that.
Time and distance will do that.
And he really should be at an age where he's willing to be. Floyd's legacy as a fighter is bulletproof. There's nothing that anybody can do or say that's going to detract. Not logically. The people who talk bad about Floyd are the same idiots who talk bad about LeBron James and try to disparage LeBron James as a player and try to pull up all these little stats and say that, oh, this is why Mike was better. It's the same people who do not know how to give something credit without disparaging something else. They feel like if there's two things that are comparable, the only way to make the thing that I like look better is to say that the thing that I'm trying to prove against is just that much worse. We are in the age where we overbash and over glorify everything. There is no middle. So anybody who's trying to talk bad about Floyd's boxing legacy is high on all the wrong dope, because you can't touch it. You can't touch it. So he doesn't have anything else really in reality to protect, but he feels like he does.
Right.
It seems like he feels like he does. So I really wish that would be something that would be going all the way back to Grand Rapids and talking about poverty and growing up in the household that he grew up in.
I mean, we've seen a document. I mean, there have been, little docu pieces that have those elements to it.
Yeah, but it does always feels like there's not the whole deal. I mean, but put it like this: how many times have we heard about Michael Jordan going to try to, getting cut from his high school basketball team?
I understand.
And then, but we've heard that.
Yeah. And I'm saying, like, I hear what you're saying, and I think it's great. I just think, like, now's too soon. Like, I think you'll get better answers and a more honest.
See, I think you're saying that from a standpoint of a hardcore boxing person. I don't think as many people in the world know Floyd's story.
I'm not saying that as a boxing person.
I'm saying you said we've heard that before about Floyd. You've heard that, and I've heard that, but I don't think the majority of the people have heard these things about Floyd. The majority of the people, their identity of Floyd is what he posts on Instagram.
That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, and I hear you, and I understand that. Yeah, in large part, there might be a big community of people that haven't, but just like we've seen a number of Mike Tyson documentaries, just like you hear that the movie's being done, right? With Jamie Foxx, right? I mean, who knows how that's gonna be? But what I'm saying is, I'm just saying from trying to compare how Michael Jordan being more reflective with all that time away than still being like, if this would have taken place a few years after he was done playing. You know what I mean? Like, where there's enough life has passed by where he's able to look back and give maybe a perspective with more maturity. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying like that there's people that, there's probably people that have no idea that might find, I mean, the Floyd documentary captivating. I just think we're going to get a more honest take from him down the road. That's all I'm saying. Like, I think his part will be better. His reactions and his thoughts could be better down the road.
Like I said, I totally understand why you would say that. My only thought to that was that because of what he's going through right now, you might be able to find an honest Floyd now. If it have to be the right situation, though. Judging by some of the things he said recently, or at least, I mean, you never know. Some of this stuff is reported, and if he's not on the screen saying it, then who knows? But I don't know. It depends. You get him in the right situation, dealing with what he's been dealing with. I don't know. Maybe and it has to be the right person. I mean, Brian Kenny's not going to get it out of him because him and Brian Kenny have a contentious relationship. Mm-hmm. It'd have to be somebody or something that he trusts, and then maybe you might be able to get a more honest. And then obviously too, you're gonna have to be able to sell to him how this benefits him from a financial standpoint and from a brand standpoint. You got to be able to sell that.
Listen, we're just talking about the purity. Some guy just asked us, who is a documentary. I mean,
but this is what we do on the podcast. We discuss it.
But what I'm saying is, he's just saying who we would want to see, a documentary on.
Exactly.
So I hear what you're saying. I mean, we're like getting in the weeds.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Let's jump into our championship rounds. All right. So let's jump back to UFC 250. All right. Right now, the main event for that is Amanda Nunes against Felicia Spencer. That's probably going to be the main event. Amanda Nunes is the greatest women's mixed martial arts in the world, and that there has ever been. She has beaten everybody there is to beat.
Right.
And beating them soundly for the most part. The only loss to anybody of any major significance that she's had is to Kat Zingano, but that's not even. This fight is one she's going to go into favored heavily, and for all intent and purpose, she's going to win this fight. But Felicia Spencer does have a shot. And here's the reason why. She has a shot because she is a fantastic grappler. And especially in women's mixed martial arts, when you have that as a major base, you have a better shot than others. Now, Amanda Nunes is an exception because she is one that has that snapping one punch, one strike kind of power. So she may be able to stop that takedown attempt or be able to deter it. And then she's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So we'll see what happens. She'll be a huge favorite. She'll be a huge favorite. I'm interested in seeing what other fights are added to that card, because as of right now, there are only looks like 5 fights on this card. It's that one. It's Charles Byrd against Maki Pitolo, Ian Heines against Gerald Meachart, Alex Perez against Jussier Formiga, and then Alonzo Minifield against Devin Clark. To be totally honest, especially for a pay-per-view, all of those other fights are prelim fights. So this is there isn't going to be a May 23rd card. So
there's not.
So
So when did that get canceled?
It got pushed back to May 30th, and then now that just isn't on the board at all. I doubt strongly that at this time they would add that back. Yeah, I don't know I don't know how.
So 250 is the next UFC show.
250 is the next show.
Well, I'm hearing that Arizona might be an option
for 250. Yeah, it could very well be because it's still listed as the location is to be announced. Right. So it very well could be.
Because the Nevada Commission's not open yet.
Yeah. Yep. And whatever they've done with
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't. If it's closed to fans, it doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter where it is.
I know. So, but it does look, it does matter to fighters as far as just knowing where you're gonna be.
Oh yeah.
What is your elevation? What is the temperature? What's the humidity? What type of medicals now do I need for that state that I don't need in other states? Some states are more strict. Some are more lenient. I mean, there are things that go into this that the fighters do think about, that they want to know. Is it going to be, 72 degrees outside? Is it going to be 102 degrees outside? Do I need to go now get an MRI and an MRA and an EKG? Or is it just, blood, eyes, and the tests? Because I've already been licensed in there this year, and so I don't have to do the testing. I mean, people just like to know.
Yeah, 100%. They do. And I think that it matters most to the fighters for sure. But, from
where am I traveling from? Am I traveling from potentially New York to West Coast, or is it going to be now East Coast? It's just, people just like to prepare.
Yeah, especially as we're getting closer down to it. So for sure. But yeah, so that's my biggest thing about that. We just got to figure out what else is going to be on this card. Because as of right now, I mean, Amanda Nunes, Felicia Spencer, with all due respect to both of them, is a pretty weak main event for a pay-per-view. So we'll see what else is added. I think that co-main event is going to be really important to this particular card. So we'll have to wait and see in the coming days, because I would think we'd have to be finding out what the co-main event is within the next before Friday.
Right.
We got to figure out what that is. So, but that's that for that particular championship round. Let's look at our second one here, which is about the fights that should be made moving forward.
So I have a question for you. So I asked you this a few shows ago, maybe more. I said, who's the biggest draw in UFC? And you said it's still Conor.
Yes.
Okay. Who would be like right behind him?
John.
Okay. So let me ask you this. When was the last time John fought?
That was earlier this year. Dominic Reyes, I think, what was that?
Right.
February.
And then the Cerrone fight was when?
Late January or February.
Right.
Late January.
So why don't they each headline a behind closed doors pay-per-view?
I think honestly, I think that's coming. John's been calling out Francis Ngannou all week because John wants to. I think the best thing for John right now is to step up to heavyweight. I think that's just the best thing for him, period. This has been something that mixed martial arts community has been anticipating for a long time. I mean, he's 6'4". He clearly carried 235, 240 well. So
somebody says, where's Conor right now? I don't even know. Is he in Ireland?
Probably, I'm sure.
Yeah. So he's not coming here anytime soon.
Right. All right. We were seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties on Peter's part. On Peter's side, I apologize for that. But just talking about the fights that we would love to see at the end of for the rest of the year for the UFC. John Jones, Francis Ngannou was definitely one that would be a fantastic fight to have because obviously he's been calling Ngannou out to go up and he wants to move up to heavyweight. I think it's best for John. I think from a speed standpoint, he's having a little bit of an issue handling the light heavyweights. They're different. Just the speed that they present right now, I think, is a little bit difficult. It's getting harder for John. And this is the right time for him to move up to heavyweight. From Ngannou's standpoint, it makes sense because Ngannou wants a title fight. He's probably not going to get it because the Cormier-Miocic trilogy has to play itself out. So because that's the case, it would make far more sense for Jones to go ahead and fight Ngannou because that's the closest thing to it. And then obviously if Ngannou wins, he really has to get a title shot at that point. But it is a risky fight for Ngannou because he could lose and would then again be outside of his title shot. So we'll see what happens. I'd also really like to see Israel Adesanya against Paulo Costa. That fight makes all the sense in the world. At middleweight, those guys have been going at each other. Kobe Covington against Jorge Masvidal makes all the sense in the world too. The dudes seem to hate each other. The winner should absolutely get a title shot at welterweight. So that one makes sense. And then obviously Justin Gaethje versus Khabib Nurmagomedov for the undisputed lightweight championship. That's a great fight for sure. That's the one I feel like we really need to have. As always, I appreciate you watching. For Peter Kahn, this is The Fight, guys. God bless and peace.